Make it click. You will discover the hidden potential of automation for your business. When you're first starting out and you say, but I can't get help, I can't outsource, I don't have the money. Well, this automation stuff might be the lifesaver for you and your business to save you time and save you money. And I'm happy to have with me as my guest, Mark Bartel from Blue Ocean Automators. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Good to be here, Christine. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'd like to start out this episode by having you explain automation. I think, I might even have a little bit different, definition of it than you do. You're more in depth, but let's try to keep this on the high level of for our newbie listeners. What basically are we talking about with automation?
Mm. So, a simple definition, I'd say, in automation is any system or process that is done without human intervention. And this typically, there's a couple different use cases for things that can be automated. Like, for example, things that you do repetitively. Like if you send the same email every Monday or every Wednesday or something of the sort, you can automate a system like that, and that email gets sent off without you having to manually do it. If you're constantly doing copy and pasting, if you're doing repetitive work, if it's really work that you could probably offload to a VA that doesn't require a lot of your input, those are all things that an automation system could do for you for your business.
Okay, so I'm thinking that it kind of scares people away, or somebody that has started to incorporate some of this in their business gets rather frustrated.
Mhm.
What do you suggest? Is there a starting point for the basics with automation? What do you
I
recommend?
would say the first step to do is go through a deep dive of your own businesses. And this is something that I notice with a lot of the clients that I work with. And this really applies to almost anybody who first enters the automation space, myself included. Like even as all these new tools and more advanced AI tools are being generated, I'm still discovering, oh, this is a system that I was doing that I can automate and I don't have to worry about anymore. So for those who are looking to get started, I would suggest taking a look at your business and asking yourself, what am I spending my time on every day? Like, do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Is there anything that's common to all five of them that's done electronically, like a certain email being sent or a certain calendar link getting created or something repetitive? Ask yourself, how much time is it taking? How much effort is it taking? And is there enough I guess, creative input from your end that would allow you to justify keeping it on your schedule? Or is there enough, I guess, is there enough stuff that can be done repetitively that allow you to justify pushing this off to either a technology system or somebody else? But the biggest challenge that a lot of these businesses have is they don't know what they don't know. Like I remember I was in a conference, I think it was Ads World, either last year or the year before, and there was this South American entrepreneur, and his talk was how I use these automation systems to save me and my employees over 100 man hours per month. And he walked the audience through these four use cases that he built. And yeah, it was absolutely mind blowing. He had all these things being done, automatically that I didn't realize you could automate. So that really encouraged me as an entrepreneur to look deeper into what can be automated, what can I do better for my clients. And having implemented those systems, they've gotten a lot of good feedback. And the really basic things, like the big challenge with entrepreneurs trying to leverage these tools, is everybody thinks their business is unique. Like, oh, I can't automate that because I need to do that. No, you don't. Like you have a really gifted brain. You're gutsy enough to do entrepreneurship. And there's a book out there called The E-Myth Revisited, and it talks about the challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs have is like if you're a really good baker, let's say you have just an absolute gift for it, and your friends and family are all saying, "Oh, hey, you need to start a bakery. People would pay top dollar for this," and maybe they would, but 2 or 3 years later, that person has started the bakery, and they may or may not hate their lives because running a bakery is so much more than just baking the goods. You have to manage customers, you have to manage marketing, you have to do accounting. There's all these sub skills that an entrepreneur has to take care of in addition to the thing that they're good at. So the best way to think about automations is all those things that you don't like doing that you just simply have to do, you hand those off to a computer system to do those in the background while you're doing the important things that actually you enjoy doing and also move the needle for your business.
Well, and I like that you're telling our listeners to take a look at everything that you do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and start writing down what you're doing, how you're doing everything. Because I find all too often, if I suggest something like that to somebody because they need a SOP, it's like, oh my God, that's going to take so much time. But listeners, listen up. If you take the time to do this now, as Mark is saying, these things are going to be running in the background for you. And it is highly advisable if you're just starting out in business, start documenting everything right away. I know years ago I was in a coaching group, and I remember somebody asking the coach, like, well, how do I, start to, I think they were looking at outsourcing and they wanted to know, like, well, how do I tell people how to do, and I was like, you want to just write down everything that you do, the steps that you take, start documenting. But I think all too often business owners start their business and they just start duct taping everything together. And then before they know it, it's like, oh my God, I have this huge mess. How do I take the time to resolve these issues? But I like how you also said that people think their business is unique. Well, sure, Mark. No, you don't get it, Mark. My business is different. Yeah, no, it doesn't work for me that way. But no, it's yes. We all think we're unique, but yeah, when it comes to what every business needs, it's really the basic stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so I really do appreciate that you're telling our listeners that. So you had mentioned something like with the emails. What Okay, so you mentioned email. Are there other processes that you see a startup really
Mhm.
needing? What are some of those tools that are kind of the basics for automation?
Yeah, I would say anything you're using digitally, like device storage, say Google Drive or something where you have all your documents stored, media files, all those types of things, the Slack channels, the CRMs, all those tools, like the document creations for your contracts, all of those tools can be connected to talk to each other. Like one of the more popular ones that always blows the minds of my listeners, or my clients rather, and when I speak to them about, we have that initial conversation about what can be automated in your business, and they'll go through the, well, I need to be there for this, and I say, okay, let's just pause. Do you onboard clients? Yes, you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be running a business. Do you ask them to pay you? Yes, you do, because otherwise you wouldn't be in the store. Do you get feedback from them? Do you do marketing? I mean, maybe they don't do it electronically, in which case, that's a different conversation. But are you using either organic or paid traffic to come to your website? Are you hiring employees? Are you doing all these things? If so, you can automate that. Like for those who are concerned about it taking too much time, it's like, well, imagine your onboarding process takes, let's say it takes 5 hours per client. And I've worked with some people who did have an onboarding process that was that long. You build up a system that can generate the contract, that can send them the contract, that can follow it up, that can, once they've signed the contract, it then opens up a media folder, sends it to them, and says, fill this with all these things that you need. You create a digital checklist of all the onboarding steps that you need to do. And of course, a couple of those onboarding steps, like an onboarding call, you simply got to do that. You can't automate that part. But
Mhm.
everything else that doesn't involve face to face interaction, you can put all that in a system. And let's say your automation takes you from a 5 hour onboarding process down to half an hour. And that's just the onboarding call itself. Once you've done that call, you can then send everything to the fulfillment. So you just saved 90% of your time for just one person. So if you onboard 3 people a week, 4.5 hours times three, that's about 13 and a half hours. What could you do every week with 13 and a half hours given back to your schedule, given back to your team? Now you could onboard more clients with that. You could go home early, you could get exercise, you could take your spouse out for dinner, you could spend more time with your kids. the nice thing about these tools is showing entrepreneurs what's possible and how they can take advantage of it. Like even last night, I was hopping on, I guess, an introductory call with a client, and she's over in I want to say West Africa, but she was overwhelmed with all these different things that she was trying to do. And she's like, I don't know where to begin. This is what I do. Could you help me automate these? And I said, absolutely. Like everything you just described can all be automated. So all you got to do is just check in on the system once a day, once a week, if you want, just to make sure it's all flowing properly. And all those emails, all those storage things, making sure this document saved, sending that contract to that guy, contacting this person to book your call, all that stuff can be done manually. And you just do what you do best, whatever that may be. All those systems take care of themselves.
Right. Yeah. Do you do you prefer an all-in-one system? Well, I'm sure there's no all-in-one system that can do everything your business needs, but do you recommend to our listeners to look for something that can do multiple operations for them versus trying to use a couple different tools?
Well, the more robust your tools are, the simpler and cheaper the automations are going to be to build. So there's a couple different ways you can go about doing it. The most common way, and I'm sure everybody who's even looked up automations on the internet will see something like Zapier. Zapier, Make, it used to be known as Integromat. They called themselves Make, which
Mhm.
purple, like went from blue to purple. You'll see them on the internet if you look for them. But these are two tools that are designed to take as many software tools as you're using and streamline all of them. So for every use case that you have, you're going to have all those steps in place to do all those things that you need to do. So there's, I guess, vanilla boilerplate template ones that are designed that I've created for my own clients where, if you want to onboard a client, if you want to onboard an employee, if you want to gather weekly feedback, if you want to, bring in your leads, upload them to CRM, all those types of things, then those can all be done with, let's say, the vanilla template. And then whatever custom requirements you might have for that, for the more unique components of your business, then you attach those onto it as well. So if you're building it from scratch, then there's plenty of templates out there. If you're working with someone like myself or one of these other automations guys, you just tell them, here's what I need. These are systems that I'm using. And then, quite frankly, they'll do the rest.
Mm. And as you had previously said about going in and checking things maybe once a day, did something get sent to the new client and everything? So I want the audience to understand you still have to check on things. And sometimes things do stop working. So it's not oh, I built it and now I can forget about it like people do with
Mm-hmm.
websites all too often. You do have to get in there and make sure everything is still working. But as
Mm-hmm.
Mark says, it's really going to save you time. Now, so we've been really talking about processes and tools to streamline the business. Let's shift over to producing content. And that one tool that's been getting a lot of publicity, the artificial intelligence called Chat GPT. I like to call it Chatty Cathy. Uh, tell our audience, first of all, what is Chat GPT for those that don't know what it is?
So, in layman's term, well, fancy term, ChatGPT is a language learning model that is designed to generate content and create stuff based off what you tell it to do. In more layman's terms, it's like Jarvis from the Iron Man movies. It's functionally like a little robot. You can say, "Hey, can you do this for me?" And they'll say, "Sure. Here's 10 headlines, or here's 10 advertising slogans, or whatever." It's it's fascinating how far it's come in the last, I want to say it came out last November, if I recall. So it's been
Mhm.
around for about 10
Yeah.
months, give or take. But yeah, it's generated a lot of hype. A lot of people think it's going to bring about, Judgment Day and Terminator Armageddon. Other people say it's going to fix everything. If you look at the technology adoption curve, a lot of the major players like Gartner have said it's basically at the top of the high expectations. And then as people realize it's not as capable as they thought, you're going to enter that trough of despair before it levels off into something that's societally acceptable in the long term. And you're seeing that now. Like for the
Mhm.
first 6 months of ChatGPT, everybody was wringing their hands and trying to make money off of it and all these things. And I mean, you can go on YouTube and see God knows how many videos about here's how to make, $1,000 a day doing ChatGPT. And I'll tell you this as someone who's used it for dozens and dozens and dozens of hours, none of those YouTubers know what they're talking about. None of those YouTubers have actually made that level of money in ChatGPT. And quite frankly, if you use ChatGPT enough, you can get a feel for when people are just reading the script that ChatGPT gave them. And one of the reasons why I started teaching entrepreneurs how to use ChatGPT and how to properly leverage it for their business was I got tired of seeing all these people making false promises and overhyping this technology, because a lot of the technology that makes its way into society, especially in the digital space, you have a ton of people try to take advantage of it.
Mm,
um, People who can, like, they can at least understand it, those people will then try to spread it to the masses and explain it wrongly to people who don't understand it, and usually do it for, I don't want to say nefarious purposes, but usually they can monetize whatever version of the truth they want to spin, and their listeners will gobble it up. Like if you go on these YouTube channels, hey, there's people making millions of views and probably a couple $1,000s telling people factual inaccuracies about artificial intelligence. So to all those listening, it's a really highly capable robot that can do a lot of really cool stuff, but it's not, I don't believe it's going to take over the world anytime soon. I think it's
yeah.
it serves a good place in your business, but it does not yet have the human element that's necessary to completely replace people. I've heard a couple of mentors often say AI is not going to take your job. People who know how to use AI are going to take your job. And that's really where a lot of businesses have to decide, do you want to digitally transform yourself? Do you want to learn how to leverage these tools? Or do you want to keep doing things as you have been and start getting lapped by businesses that do know how to use these tools? Because that will and has begun to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for saying that about the YouTubers out there and saying, you can make so much money. Like any tool, you have to know how to feed it right.
Mhm.
And if you don't put the right input in, it's not going to be worth your time. And I go back to a few years ago. I was putting together a landing page for an event I was doing, and I thought I had done a pretty good job of writing my content and whatnot. And then a coach looked at it and like, oh, that's not going to work. Oh, that's not. But I had a friend who's a writer, and I decided to invest in her services to write my registration page. I was amazed at the questions she was asking me. I
Mhm.
never would have thought about half of what she was asking me. And that alone shows the benefit of working with somebody knowledgeable. It's the same thing when you're putting a query into Chat GPT. If you really don't know what to put in, it's not going to be worth it, whatever the results are. So yeah, I like with anything, like I say, if you don't feed it the right way, it's not going to work. So yeah, we don't have to worry about it taking over the world. It's a help. I know I like to use it as a starting point. Give me some ideas. Okay,
Mhm.
now change this up a little. But it's an idea generator too.
Mhm.
Uh, so you mentioned about teaching people Chat GPT. What do
Mhm.
you have for our audience, Mark, that could help them understand Chat GPT better?
So I have, I guess, two things. I've been teaching a course called Ultimate ChatGPT Mastery, and that's basically taking entrepreneurs from day one, never even turned on a computer, all the way to here's how you properly use ChatGPT for your business. But I mean, that's a 6 week course, and I'm in the process of launching the second wave now. I haven't yet set a date for it. But the second piece is I've compiled a little ebook on all the different, I guess, all the major obstacles and life lessons I've learned from working with other entrepreneurs and using this technology, like the expectations people have going in, how to read the data, how to think critically through it. Because ChatGPT, it's very good, but it's also very good at making stuff up and confidently presenting it to you as if it were factual. So learning how to fact check ChatGPT, learning how to properly structure your questions so it gives you the response that you want, all those types of things. I mean, it's all covered in the course that I teach, but there's also that quick little ebook, and it's at the link. It'll be live at the link down below within the next couple hours. And that's just basically non-mistakes that I see most often when walking people through how to use this stuff, how to monetize it for their business, and how to get the best out of it.
Well, that sounds like a great resource and the great course to really help people understand ChatGPT. One last question for you, Mark. Now you just started your business a few years ago. Prior to that, you were an employee. When you
Yes.
think to where you are today, what is something that when you think about building your business and what really helped you? Is there something that comes up that you say, "Wow, this concept that I learned really made it click in my business." Or maybe there was a certain tool that as you were starting out, it's like, oh my God, I mean, you're talking about automation, you're the automation king here. So maybe there was when you discovered a tool. Does anything come up for you that you can say, this is what made it click in my business?
I think, well, I can give you both before and after the fact if you want. A lot of these were just life lessons and realizations that I had. There's a couple tools that really helped push me along, whether like maybe software tools I bought in their beta phase, like Groove Pages, operated by Mike Filsame. I bought that in beta for about $1,200, and that covers almost all of my computing needs. Like my websites are based off of there, storage is based off of there, courses based off of there. Anything that I need to manage my digital presence is all on that site, and I pay nothing for it on a monthly basis because I bought it when it was in beta. I think back in 2020, early 2021, I was looking at it and I was using ClickFunnels, which was $100 a month. And a client of mine asked me, "What do you think of the Groove Pages?" And I was like, "Let me take a look." And I realized, hey, I could continue paying for Groove for ClickFunnels, or I can buy this for 1,200 and it'll pay for itself in 12 months. And it's paid for itself 3 or 4 times over now because that's $100 a month. I'm now saving. So technologically, I said that's my best answer. Philosophically, it was really about really asking myself what I wanted to get out of life. I think at the time I was happy in corporate. I had a pretty good, first time job, and that was I basically worked as an internal sales consultant for a high-end research company that specialized in giving technology advice to, really large players in their markets. And I saw a lot of really cool projects. I got to know a lot about a lot of different technology fields, but I felt like an assistant coach at a basketball game. Like I have an engineering degree, I have an engineering master's, and I learned how to build cool stuff when I was in college. And I just didn't feel like I was able to build those same things in the workforce. And the places that my teams valued me most was when I was able to build those automations in something like Excel that would analyze their data for them, and we'd then sit down, run their stuff through the systems I built, and reach conclusions and takeaways that they could take and work with their clients and upsell products and all those types of things. It was a ton of fun. So during COVID, I watched a ton of my colleagues in the small business world get absolutely thrashed by COVID regulations, government lockdowns, and all those types of things. And I thought, surely we're in the 21st century. There's got to be automation tools or ways to keep these businesses afloat without having employees there. So that's really what got me started on it. And once I really started seeing progress with that for some of the businesses I was working with, once I started seeing the way that they could sustain restaurants and small businesses, mom and pop shops, without other employees showing up, it kind of solidified this is what I want to do with my career from here on. And I think it was when Chadwick Boseman passed away in August of 2020, that was when it really solidified for me because he was, up and coming Marvel actor. He was just now becoming an A-list celebrity, and he was gone. 43 years old, died of stomach cancer, and nobody knew about it until his death notice appeared on social media. And he had this quote. My sister sent it to me. He was a really strong Christian, and he said, "When I die, I want to look God in the face and say I did everything I could for you. Every ounce of blood, sweat, tears, nothing was left on the table. I put it all on the line for you for my time on earth." And I realized in that moment, like I'm not sure I could say the same thing. I've got a lot of things I want to do, could do, would do, should do if at the time. And so I think from that point on, looking at the results that I built for a couple smaller clients, it then shifted into, okay, we're definitely doing this. It's just a matter of when. So I think to summarize all that for you, the comment or the insight that changed my direction was, what am I living for? And if I could review everything I've done, would I have any major regrets on how I handled my time? Or would I be like, oh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I had more time. If I wasn't happy with the direction I was going, or at least trying to do what I was trying to do, then what was the point? Was basically my conclusion.
Well, that was quite a bit there, Mark. Thank you so much for that. I hope that our audience has received a lot of benefit and really reduced the stress level about the thought of automation and realize that it can really benefit their business and free up their time. Mark, thank you so much for being my guest today on Make It Click.
It's a pleasure being